And this brings us to our concluding video on the first lecture, the pre-unit lecture. Here we see the late medieval era. Typically for me, the way I like to look at the late medieval era, it's going to be from 1250-ish to 1500. And it will end differently in different places. But this is the last part of the medieval era in which becomes a very violent transition into the modern world. That's how I'm going to want you to think about it. Think about this late medieval era as the last step into what we might call the Renaissance. Well, the leadership, it's going to be really a conflict between leaders. The traditional leaders, they're the conservative, the reactionaries. They want to maintain to their traditions. This is going to be the Christendom and the Pope. The Pope believes that God chose him to oversee this. The Pope actually believed, the Catholics believe that the Pope is the vicar of Christ, or the Christ on earth. That once he is ordained Pope, he transcends, and that's one of the reasons why they changed their names. So the Pope, big strong belief that he alone is the king of Europe. And of course, at the local level, you have the nobility. The nobility, they sought to maintain that decentralized state. They like to have direct authority over their serfs. They like the idea that they were necessary because of their castles and being knights. Well, those traditional leaders are going to have conflicts with the emergent leaders. With the urban areas beginning to recover with the end of the barbarian invasions, as well as the results of the Crusades and expanded trade, the merchants reemerge. With merchants becoming a significant social class, well, remember, before this time period, what were the two social classes? Nobility and serfs. Well, merchants living in the urban areas, they're no longer controlled by the nobility. They want to make their mark. So the merchants and nobility, they're going to have significant conflicts. And then what we call the new monarchies. They're going to seek to centralize their power. They want to create what we might call a nation state that we're going to see later. Instead of being controlled by the nobility, the monarchies, they want to unite their countries. Spain, France, England. When we begin to see these political entities form and they're going to be united by these new monarchies, well, who's going to lose power there? Well, first of all, the nobility. No longer will the nobility have maintained dominant power over the localities. They're going to now have to serve the king. They're not going to like that. Additionally, when people become more loyal to the kings, what happens to Christendom? Now, instead of people being directly loyal to the Pope, they have a dual loyalty. So these new monarchies and the Pope, they're going to have some issues. And that creates this element from 1300 to 1500, really into 1600s. A series of wars and civil wars will sweep through Western Europe, giving birth to what we might call the modern era. What is modern Europe? Well, we're going to find out the Renaissance was the birth of the modern world. We'll see that a little bit later. So by the 1400s, Western Europe was undergoing a key transition. We see Christendom, Latin, we see the nobility, but we also begin to see the rise of the new, hip, modern, the merchants, urban areas, and new monarchies. Well, there's really nothing uniting. They're going to be polarized because the nobility, there is no compromise between nobles and the king. Either the nobles have power or the kings have power. There's no compromise between the Pope and the king. Either the Pope has power or the king has power. And then the merchants are going to play a role in that too. So instead of having compromises, we're going to see these polarizing elements that cause the wars. And lastly, with this new connection to the rest of the world through Constantinople, we're going to begin to see the emergence of what we call the modern world. And really, for me as a historian, the year's going to be 1453. That really changes everything. And we'll see that in our unit. I hope this makes sense to you. And again, we'll see. You have a great day.